Good afternoon, everyone. It's our pleasure to welcome you to the Risk and Sustainability workshop or seminar during the COVID-19 crisis for small and medium entities businesses. So today's event will be conducted from 1:30 to 2:30 Jakarta time, and that is equal to 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. Singapore or Malaysia time. And I would like you to hang on with us if there is any technical issues in regards to the internet, but I believe and I also wish that everyone will enjoy this event. And this event is provided by the collaborations, but in this opportunity, I would like to introduce you first to the Head of Internationalization and Partnership Program of the Faculty of Economics and Communication from BINUS University, Dr. Ariyanti Puspokusumo. Hi, Ibu.
Hi, good afternoon. No, it's okay.
Okay, so Dr. Ariyanti Puspokusumo is the head of the Internationalization and Partnership Program of the Faculty of Economics and Communication of BINUS University. And the seminar today will be conducted by Dr. Khong Tai Wai. He's a practitioner turned academician. Prior to his current position, he has more than 10 years experience in finance and business development in financial services industry. And he also has 8 years of teaching experience and currently serving as the senior lecturer at the Faculty of Accountancy, Finance and Businesses in Tunku Rahman University College. Good afternoon, Dr. Khoong.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, so I would like to invite Ibu to open officially the seminar. Go ahead, Ibu.
Thank you, Dr. Ibu Dewi Fitriasari. In this occasion, I have to say a lot of things on behalf of the Faculty of Economics and Communications, but somehow this has been happening, has been provided by a very good support from Tunku Rahman University, Malaysia, from my dear Professor Say Sokwan, and she's always, there to ask to be supportive to our university for a long time already. Our student has been also working together in the last year activities. I'm talking about accounting departments in BINUS, the finance department as well, and so as our campus, the one in Makati. So Professor Say, you've been very supportive to us all this time, and I really thank you for this. And besides that, I'd like to thank also Dr. Chin for bridging this activities between these webinars. Dr. Chin, is she here? Thank you, Dr. Chin. She was the one who introduced the speakers, Dr. Khoong and Dr. Chow. Dr. Chow will be speaking next week. So I think all the students will have to join also next week's class. And so without much ado, I'd like to thank Dr. Khoong for your availability and cooperation for today's activity. And we are very, very honored to have you today with us and to share and your experience in your research especially. So thank you, Dr. Dewi Fitriasari, for this opportunity, and to the colleague from TARC University. We welcome you all to the Faculty of Economics, especially on this accounting department and financial accounting as well, and so as technology accounting from Makati. Thank you. Enjoy the webinar today.
Thank you, Dr. Ariyanti Puspokusumo. So before we go to the main discussion of the day, I would like to remind you that for our convenience, all of us, when you are listening to the seminar, I will encourage you to mute your mic so there will be minimum background noise. And I would like to also inform you that the discussion session of this online seminar will be conducted 30 minutes before the end of the event itself. And the questions that you would like to have Dr. Khoong to answer will need to be typed in the chat group. In the menu of the chat, the group chat, in the Zoom, that will be the menu that you see normally laptop next to the participants. You see the chat, so you can type your questions there, but 30 minutes before the end of the event itself. So I hope this arrangement is acceptable for everyone. And I would like to invite now Dr. Khoong. Dr. Khoong, can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the good afternoon, doctor, basically. So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to Professor, Doctor. There's those who are inside the chat room who is interested to know more about the topic that I'm going to talk today, basically. And good afternoon to the student also, the ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so without further ado, thank you also the University of the BINUS to invite me for this cooperation, the sharing sections of what I'm going to do for my research currently with my team, basically. Okay, I'm using a PowerPoint slide. You can refer to the slide. Okay, can you see my slide? Can you see the slide? Right. So just recap the topic we're going to talk for my sharing this section is risk and sustainability during the COVID-19 crisis. That's what the happening crisis nowadays. And for the specifically for the SME enterprise, basically. Okay. So this is some of the content that I'm going to talk for today's. I will start about some of the history the crisis going to happen currently, and also some of the previous history that crisis is happening in the world, at least basically. Then we'll understand what is the SME, what is the contributions to the countries. Then we continue with the current crisis, how the COVID crisis going to impact of the SME, and how SME, the risk encountered by the SME itself, and what is the risk management they should take. And we finalize at the end the SME actions to build resilience. And if we are possible, we have go through some of the slide, 1 or 2 slides. What is the government's initiative policy nowadays to overcome the crisis? So as an introduction again, I want to talk about if you look at it within 25 years, the global Asian countries being experienced 3 major crises, where it started at the Asia financial crisis in 1997 or 98, and second ones will be subprime mortgage, if you remember, 2007, 2008, and currently bringing to the COVID-19 crisis, where it's happening end of last year, and it's still continue until today. Okay. Well, if you look at it, the first ever financial crisis is in 23 or 24 years back, in 1997 and 98, where we still remember Thailand. It started from Thailand, basically, and where Thailand decided not to peg the Thai baht with the US dollar. And subsequently spread to our Asian country, basically, where Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, we also being affected. And if you look at it at that time of crisis, most of the East Asia currency dropped until 38% possible. Okay, and that time most of the countries being come and pump in, have so many stimulus package economic to help the government's the economic overall. Just cite one example for my country, Malaysia government's pump in at least 7 billion ringgit in Malaysia, or 5% of our GDP countries, basically. That is during 1997. Then after 10 years after the Asia financial crisis, we have another crisis. We call it the subprime mortgage in 2007 and 2008, where it started in the US. Everybody knows about the subprime mortgage, where it's related to the mortgages related financial instrument. He started at the US and he left the Dow Jones average industry average index dropped to 50%, about half of the index. This effect at that time will be the financial services industry, the banking. We still remember that time the subprime mortgage lead to some of the illiquids and lead to bankruptcy. Still remember the time. So no choice for that is because of the concept of too big to fail. Governments of the US come in to help to pay up the financial institution at the time. Okay, I mean, look at that. Just cite my country example. That time, Malaysia, we also have the government introduced 2 economic stimulus package, and it's worth 127 million ringgit, and it's account of 99% of our country GDP. So if you look at it, during the Asia crisis, we already have pump in 2.5% GDP at subprimes. We already have pump ins of 9% of the GDP. Not only Malaysia, just we highlight that most of the country will be affected at the time. So after the subprime, after 12 years later, now currently we have another crisis. We call it the COVID-19 crisis in 2000. So might be it's happened. I know that since December 2019, but it's continuous until today. So I mean, I just want to say what I want to highlight here is if you look at the 2 previous financial crisis happening in 1907, it's a financial related crisis where it started from consumers or individuals or people related activities, where it's affected the financial bubble overall and disperse and affect the whole globalization basically. So as if you look at the current crisis, the COVID-19 2020, is definitely not related to the financial crisis, but to the healthcare crisis. That is they have some difference between these two, the financial crisis and also the health-related crisis. Basically, if you look at the previous two financial-related crises, it started from people. I don't say it's a man-made, but definitely is related to finance, where is the amount of market demand is still there, just that the demand is reduced by a certain percentage. Look at the post objective for this Asia financial crisis and subprime mortgages is to check up the profit or the losses basically being encountered by the SME or the company, where the sustainability is still there. But if you look at the COVID-19 crisis in 2000 that is happening in the current, the market demand is totally stopped from all over the country, I can say, due to the lockdown issues or whatever issues. And I believe that the main post objective to post the COVID-19 crisis is because it's to the short-term and the long-term sustainability of the SME basically. I just want to highlight again a bit more about this COVID-19 crisis. If I told you just now, COVID-19 is more to biological healthcare crisis. It's one of the new crises is happening during this 50 years, because all this part of the crisis is a financial related and the crisis. But however, this biological healthcare crisis might be a it's happened. I mean, I just want to cite one example last time. If you still remember some of your example, the Ebola virus crisis at time, where it's also a health-related crisis, happened in 2014, but that the crisis and the virus only spread between the African continent countries. Okay. And during that times, even though it's not come to the Asia or to the global, but this also forced some of the African continent countries to execute some stimulus package to overcome the crisis. I mean, some example I want to cite is Liberia governments have pumped in 8.5 of the GDP's countries to help out the crisis. Okay, and okay, let's before understand about more about what is going to happen in the SME. Why SME is the center focus of all the government's policies basically. So if you look at the diagram here, SMEs have the highest shares of total business establishments within all organizations. If you look at the statistic, according to the OECD, okay, SME account more than 90% of most country economy. Where is the backbone of the country basically? So means out of 10, if you just walk at the street and you see 10 shops, most of I can see 8 or 9 is belong to the SME level basically, and it's only 1 is a large corporations. So in that sense, it's correct that I can say more than 90% of the establishment of the business is belong to the SME. I'm just do a simple statistic here, where you can see most of the Asia being the selected countries in the Asia for my understanding is we have Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand, and more than between these 5 countries, they have more than 90% is belong to the SME. Okay, so with the high shares exhibitions of the business establishments in that countries, definitely will they provide employment for the country. So according to the OECD, SME account more than 50% of employments across the OECD country. But this amount is different and go up according to the particular sector. I mean, according to the research, it shows that on average, this 50% is only on average across the sector, but some sectors might go up to 70% in some particular countries like Italy and Greece. Okay. So come back to the Asia, so I'm just going to focus a bit in the Asia. If you look at it, the employment rate of for our Asian is roughly in between 55 until 95% basically. That means SME will able to provide employment both to the labor force, especially the local force basically. So not only the SME can able to contribute to the employment, he also able to contribute significant contribution value to the GDP. If you look at the statistic I'm shows you, okay, according to the OECD, okay, SME able to contribute on average 33% of the country GDP, basically on average, basically. And for the emerging country, those who are developed countries, is able to contribute 33 to 40%, basically. But if you look at the statistic we have in the Asia countries, the 5 selected countries that I mentioned, GDP able to contribute in between 35% until 58% in the Asian country basically. So SME will be a very focus point of most of the government policy, not only for this crisis, but also in the previous crisis. So how COVID-19 crisis impact on the SME transmission channel? So I mean, just have to highlight to you, SME act as a medium channel to balance between the supply and the demand. So what their job is actually to fulfill the both party from the supply side, to deliver from the supply side and to the demand side at the customer. So what their transmission, what in that they're going to happens in this crisis, what has happened to them is we have let's talk about the supply sides. SME facing a reductions in the labor force in the market. It is during the lockdown times in most of the country, the reduce in the labor force has happened. People is not allowed to go and work. definitely, and they have to stay at the home to take care of the dependents, family member. So they can't go to work and they have to stay in the house to take care of the children and the family. And this is more worry when the SME is more to a high skill labor, and this means nobody can take over the job then. But however, the person cannot come to work, and this is giving issues to the SME. Besides that, they're also facing a shortage of immediate goods due to the supply chain breakdown. So if you look at it, SME, when they want to produce, they need some immediate goods or raw material to produce. And due to the lockdown issues, they cannot get the immediate goods suppliers at the point that they want, basically. Okay. And this is more terrible if the SME is so depends on the foreign supplier. Say example, if you too depends on the China country and those are high affected, I believe the SME have bigger issues. Okay. On the other hand, between the transmission of supply and demands, they have demands is definitely this drop. The market demand is definitely drop due to people liquidity cannot be spending is high. You have to please be understand that during the crisis, everybody is not cannot get a job and spending power is dropped. And for the long term, the consumer or market demand is fear. The consumer is fear and cannot continue experience loss and income of fear of, and this lead to they do not want to consume, basically. And this is being shown by the previous crisis. After each of the crisis, people is become more conservative or risk adverse, and they might be spent only for the basic need. Okay. Besides that, the liquidity issues also happens in the supply chains. There's been I'm just focused. What I'm talking here is the intermediate is those who going to happen to those organizations or distribution channel that help the SME to distribute the product to the end consumer, basically. So in that sense, that just remember, COVID-19 crisis is not only affected your SME itself, it also affected most of the distribution and other SME, and they might be faced liquidity issues to pay you on time. Okay. Besides that, there are some other research to show that SME demonstrate less resilience and flexible in dealing with costs. There is one of the issues also happening in the SME, where they are not flexible and they don't have extra money to deal with the extra cost if something happened to them. Say example, I mean, because of the crisis, because of the social distance concept where we cannot meet the customer face to face, we have to use teleworking. That means we use digitalizations, basically. But however, this might pose a high cost to the SME, basically. And not also that, the SME also cannot bear the high underutility resources. What I'm talking about is most of the company is closed during the lockdown time, and how this but however they have to pay the salary to the workers, and this underutility cost labor might be affected the SME overall. Okay. This is just want to show you some of the survey being done. I get it, I adopt from multiple resources, basically combinations. And what I want to highlight here is, if you look at it, this is from February, March, and the latest might be the April. Some of the research I might be able to update it sometimes, basically. So can't deny China is the first country affected by the COVID-19, and there's so many research over there, and it spread to the European country, UK, Canada, Korea, come back to the Asia, basically, and also US. But if you look at it in general, the expectation is going to happen for this COVID-19 crisis is, I'm just going to summarize only in the short ones, 1/3 or 30% of the country, of the SME might facing crisis, liquidity issues, and might be out of the business, might be within 1 month or 3 months maximum, basically. So this is give a concerns to the governments to help this SME. So what is the actually main concern within the SME? So what is the risk actually, main concern risk that's affect the long term and the short term and the long term sustainability during the crisis for the SME, basically. So a bit of recall of what we learned in the finance class last time. So if you still remember what we have the WSCC, the British Cost of Capital, those for attend the finance class, basically, and the WSCC, they have where his concepts to evaluate, to determine how much interest cost they have to pay for the financial capitals for a firm, basically. And definitely inside the WSCC, we divide into 2 aspects. We have a cost of debt and cost of equity, you still remember. So one of the costs of equity is that can be determined using the CAPM, also in the finance capital asset pricing model. And this CAPM, if you still remember, will be affected by the beta value. Yes. If the beta values is talking about systematic risk, where it's belong to the systematics in this diagram. So risk divided into 2, we have a systematic and unsystematic. So we are not interested in the systematic now, because unsystematic risk is some can be diversified and it's only affected the firm itself that we're not interested to talk about. But COVID-19 is definitely belong to the systematic risk, where it's something cannot be diversified and will affect all the SME, basically. So this is just for to illustrate how remember you what we learned during the finance class. We have a systematic risk and unsystematic risk, where if you look at it, systematic risk cannot be eliminated no matter how. On the other hand, unsystematic risks can be diversified. Okay, so under the systematic risk, we have divided into 2: business risk and the finance risk. Okay, so according to the CFA, the Chartered Financial Analyst, one of the pioneers, a practitioner in finance, he divided the systematic risk into 2. First, we call it the business risk and the financial risk. That's what I highlight in the previous slide. So what is business risk? It's a risk associated with the volatility in operating revenue. What does this mean? This is the risk that a firm's ability to generate sufficient revenue to cover its operation expenses. That means how much company generate so that they can maintain their operations expenses. We have, in SME, you have your expenses where it's from small to big, I can say that. But the question is, if you have a business risk, whether you are able to have sufficient revenue or sales to cover your operating expenses overall. So business risks are divided into 2. Basically, we have a sales risk and the operation risk. What is sales risk? Sales risk is referred to the uncertainty of the revenue. And sales risk is very easy. It depends on how much the revenue your company can generate in the future, basically. And this sales risk is depends on the definition, the demand of the market, and also it also depends on how elasticity of the product, basically. So I'm not going to go further because it's more to the finance class, basically. And also it also depends on the structure of the competition in the industry, whether you are pure competition, monopolistic, or oligopoly, basically. So this really depends on your setup of your industry. On the other hand, we also have operate under the business risk. We have an operation risk, whereas operation risk is referred to the operating cost structure. To produce a product or the good for the SME, you should have your fixed cost (FS) and also the variable cost. So just refresh your learning. What is fresh? fixed cost. Fixed cost is something that the SME have to bear, no matter whether you're produced or not producing. This is simple different definitions. And variable cost is changing, and variable depends on how much you want to produce. Let's say, example, the raw material. But however, if you have a high fixed cost more than a variable cost, this gives you the SME or the company in uncertainty positions, because during the lockdown periods, you cannot produce, and however, you have to pay a high fixed cost. That will give you uncertainty and risk at this time of point. So, besides the business risk, we also have financial risk. What is financial risk? It's a risk associated with how a firm finance is operating. That means it's a firm ability to manage its debt, where use more or rely more on the debt financing instead of equity financing. So if you still remember your finance concept, to finance your conditions, you either have two choices. Either you have take up your money from your owner, where we call it equity. On the other hand, maybe you want to borrow to get we call it financings from the financial institution, or in the layman's we call it borrowing basically. However, if you have too high of borrowing or financings from, like, for example, debt or leasing, it will be pose a risk for organizations, because in that sense, as if you borrow, give a simple example, if you borrow money from a financial institution or the bank, you have to pay, you have to make repayments from time to time, and but even though your business is producing or not producing. So if the lockdown period is 2 months, you have to service the 2 months the payment period amount basically. So they will give you a financial risk basically. So either a business risk or financial risk definitely is under the systematic risk. This will give you whether your organizations are facing which type of risk under these two category. It definitely will pose one important thing to you, where you have a liquidity risk between the SME basically. Okay, liquidity, as you say, is that you do not have enough sufficient cash within yourself to sustain during this short period of time. So because of that, your SME have to take up some initiative to manage the risk. So we have enterprise risk management model, the ERM, where it's mentioned about the process of identifying and assessing risk, and where financial sensible, seeking to mitigate the potential damage. So looking at the current trends of the risk management today, they are quite holistic and integrated exercise, and lead to creation of the chief risk officers. Is one of the new positions within the organizations to look through the risk management within the organizations. I mean, I'm not sure about in the global arena, but in my country, Malaysia, we each listed company, they have to have risk management parts. I mean, how to risk management within the company have to be highlighted and written in each annual report of a listed company, basically. So this means it shows that our government policy is quite important, quite essential to look at this, quite serious to look at this risk management of each organization. Make sure they have enough sustainability in the long. So I'm not going to have management. I mean, if you look at the risk management and techniques, definitely inside they have the risk control, risk financing, where we are not interested to look at it by now. Okay. Next, I want to tell you about what is the current actions can be done by the more recent between the for the long term and the short term basically. So we have I'm with my team already do some research, and the research is still continuous basically, and we are in the process of collecting data. We welcome any feedback definitely, and any collaborations definitely, and we try to summarize and put it in a simple way to this sharing today basically. So we adopt it from we acknowledge the research from Ernst & Young, and we agreed with them with some of the point. So some of the things that the SME actions they can be do by now, basically they have four. This is someone to four. Prioritize safety and continuous engagement, reshape strategic for business continuous, communicate with relevant stakeholder, and finally might be build resilience in the preparation in the new normal. Okay, let's go one by one. Just have to be aware that if any crisis happen, or not only the COVID-19 or previous subprime mortgage crisis, SME need to be predictive and proactive in their decision making to preserve their business continuous sustainability. This is what you have to do. You cannot be depends on the government itself through the stimulus package, but however, SME have to do some have to plan and do some actions to overcome and to build resilience between the companies and the employee basically. So the first thing we're going to highlight is prioritize people's safety and continuous engaging. And where we always believe that humans or your employee staff is your assets to the organizations and your asset within the SME. So what we need to do during this tough time, address their concern in the open and transparent manners and to engage them with our business suspensions continue basically. So we have to address their personal life. We understand that during the crisis that during this crisis, everybody have to take care with the family because this is their duty to do that basically. So we try to address their concerns, their personal concerns basically, and we try to address it and mix it up with the company strategy objective. And we try some of the, based on the previous the study we have, we at the interview section we have with some of the SME, we found out that some of the organizations already hook up with some flexible working arrangement. See, we tried. Some book try to apply the work from home and work at home, whatever concept they call it, and the basic concept is they want to open up face-to-face contact or the social distance to avoid the spread of the virus, basically the health issues. So besides that, health measure arrangement and the site, if no choice, the company, the SME still needs the individual or employees go back to the slide or go back to the office, then health measures arrangements at your working sites need to be done. Okay. And whatever your health measurements arrangements should be according to the government policies, so that where is more to generous and also specific that we can standard that we can follow throughout the process. Okay. Besides that, this is also being done by not my country definitely. We have some survey from other countries, particularly in China, the SME. What they do is they're having a QR system tracking for the workers' physical movement. You see, sometimes some of the industry that you need the employee needs to meet up with the customer basically for the business's process, where telecommunications, teleworking is not workable within the communications. In that sense, that your worker have to go and meet the customer, where it might be it high risk area where there might be the risky to get a COVID-19 virus basically. But in that sense, as what we can do is with the SME can provide a QR code system where to track the movement of the this is being applied in some of in China and is spread to other countries as well. So besides that, the actions that can be done by the SME is reshape the strategy for business continuous. There are two things here: evaluate your short-term liquidity and consider alternative supply chain. Just remember that after the crisis, the firm or SME will experience a significant disruptions, and this might be some of the organizations have a totally disruptions. Basically, your supply chain is breakdown, the demand is reducing or might be dropped to zero. So if you have a supply chain in the countries being affected by the COVID virus, where the lockdown is happening, where you can't deliver to ship your raw material to you, what you can do is maybe you want to consider alternative supply chain options. And this is being done by some of the big organizations that were they're affordable. Say that instead of they're choosing those who are country affected by the COVID-19 virus breakdown, they will shape those who are country with situations. Basically, they have, and there's some of the organization being started to do. And how to evaluate a short-term liquidity? So to overcome your short-term liquidity, please be mind that you have to make sure that your organization's in a healthy liquid. But however, what you can do here is some of the things that you can do in your future, basically. So for the SME, what they do is a flexible working capital in receivable and inventories aspect. If you still remember in your accounting, the working capital, we'll be talking about your current assets and the current liability, whereas the working capital equals to your current assets, the CA equals to current liability. Might be before that, so your SME is being so many product in your inventories. They will, because you have to stock your product before you have to deliver to your customer, basically, and you have a high inventories in your stock warehouse. Might be in this time because of uncertainty of the market demands, might be you want to play around with your inventory to reduce your inventory to a lower levels, so that your cash flow not so tight and your liquidity is fine. Short-term position, basically. So maybe some of the companies being via research, and then one of the two SME started to apply the concept of JIT, the just-in-time concept, where this is started from the Japanese concept management concept, and they bring it until today, where most of the inventory stock is no longer applied, and everything is on time, just in time, basically. The raw material won't be stocked so much, and will only come during when it's needed, basically. So besides that, to evaluate your short-term liquidity, might be you have to negotiate your new term and conditions with your customer and your bank, SME, basically. So please remember that might be those who are under the financial risk, as I mentioned just now. You have your where you owing you borrow the money, business loan from your company, from the bank, financial institutions, and you have to serve them. But however, during these few months, you're not able to produce and you're not able to pay up the repayment. So what you can do is try to negotiate the term and the conditions and renew the term and the conditions with the bank, and also might be not only your banks, it also might be your customer and creditor, basically. Okay. And then another actions can be done about the SME is should be done, I believe so, to communicate with your relevant stakeholder. So company itself, the SME itself, not only by itself, but however, you are accountable to all the stakeholders that is beside and upside down of you. Where what you can do, if you already have a clear guideline of your business continuous, please encourage transparent and tight communications with the stakeholder basically. And yes, I just play a full report of transparency and declare what is your company position and to deliver to the stakeholder so that they understand what is the position and provide lesser uncertainty to them. Okay. And not only that, try to monitor the government's policies for the support. Most of the country already apply some of the government policy measure to respond to this crisis. Try to get some support for them basically, especially in the tax issue. That I'm going to talk it in the next slide over here basically. Okay, let's take a look. And the last one is might be some of the last action they can do is build resilience in preparations for the new normal. Everybody's nowadays, I think, look at the newspaper. We know that everybody is talking about building talking about the new normal. But what is talking about over here in the new normal is we specify in the one concept is quite the social distance concept basically apply. We try to minimize the interaction between humans, and companies, SME have to be prepared for this new normal and try to be a sustain for a long term basically. So be resilience in preparation for the new normal. If there's any changes or uncertainties in the futures, the SME have to address it and put in a new guideline and be proactive and dynamic for the changes basically. Okay, I think this is some of my last part. Okay, so this just now we talked about some of the actions can be done SME to overcome this crisis, at least for the temporary basis. Okay, but if we look at the government's authority itself, governments also most of the country within the OECD try to introduce some of the policy to overcome the measure basically. So they summarize into 5. I try some into 5 so that we have get some idea from here. First, health measure, definitely we can't run away because it's related to the healthcare of crisis. Then we have liquidity measures, credit available measures, unorganized layout measures. Those the company goes bankrupt, and most of the worker get unemployment. The last ones are the structural economic policies, where most of the governments are looking forward to the digitalizations basically. But if you look at these 5, for me is quite relevant to look at that. These health issues and liquidity issues is for the short term sustainable, and credit and unorganized layout might be from short term to a medium terms, and structural policy is for the long term sustainability within the SME itself. Okay, and the report, I'm just quote the report. They will do a very good job, and they divide it into 4 bond policy. We have a label, deferral payment, financial instrument, and structure policy. That's come again with just 5 measurements just now. So I just summarized in a short one because we are not talking about this. Maybe next section if you want to understand more. This is part of my research also. The labels we have those who are redundancy. That means those who are being unemployment, and also we have which subsidies for those who still continue working, and however the company not able to fund them still to the liquidity issues. And we have a self-employed, those who are working itself as a boss. And under deferral payments, we have income and corporate tax. Deferral is refers to the institution allows you to defer, to delay your payment basically. So initially, most of the country is started by defer the income and corporate tax, where if you look at, I mean, it's happening in most of the country is corporate tax have to pay by this month or next month if no crisis is happened. However, due to the crisis, most of the company SME cannot be survived. So the governments take initiative to defer the incomes and the corporate tax, where it's being applied by most of the country if you look at it. Okay. And besides that, we have deferral of VAT, the value-added taxes, where it's applied for most of the country nowadays. And deferrals on social security and pension contributions. So government, most of the SME have to pay not only the salary to the worker, they also have to pay the social security and the pension contributions. And due to the crisis, some of the countries' authority also allowed the deferrals of the social security and pension contributions. Just cite some example. Brazil allowed to defer for 3 months. Portugal's allowed for deferral for 6 months, basically. And besides that, so we have deferrals of rental and utilities and the local tax, basically. So this type of deferrals is still for the rental is being applied in the China and France and Thailand countries. Utilities is in the France already. Local tax is being started in the Singapore to help the SME to be survived. And the last one under deferrals, we have a debt moratoriums, where it's debt repayments are deferred by the commercial bank, basically, where it's started by most of the countries, basically like Malaysia, Australia, Saudi Arabia, where it's allowed to be deferred for 6 months repayment, after the 6 months, basically. And not only that, governments also come up with the financial instruments to help out the SME. We have the loan guarantee, direct lending to SME, and grant and subsidize. So for those who are existing a loan guarantee, the governments give a guarantee to the commercial financial institution, especially the bank, to provide a loan to the SME, so that they are more viable and flexible in terms of the loans, like borrowing, basically. And we have also a direct lending to SME, where it's direct lending from the authority itself to the SME. And also we have a grant subsidized. This means anything being subsidized to the SME without under repayment in the future. So at the end, we have a structural policies by the governments. Then where we have where this might be for the long term. But if you look at all 4 response within the policy, the 3 is the most applicable in the actions being done by the governments nowadays in most of the country. Structural policies still in initial state is only applied for those who are already, like China and France and also Japan, those who already are in a developed country and they started to have a change in the structures in their country, basically. So inside the structural economic policies, we have a new market, getting the new market. And I just want to cite one example here is in China, there is some of the SME being encouraged to collaborate with large organizations to capture the new market, basically. And we have teleworking and digitalization. Government encourage most of the SME to go to digitalizations and through the teleworking, might be from your accounting accounts, account works, account tasks to the marketing activity, basically. And we have innovations. Innovations is to encourage the SME with technology products to overcome this crisis, basically. The last one, we have a training and redeployments of your staff, where due to this crisis, we're moving up to the new technology digitalizations. What the government support is to try to allow, they try to encourage, they encourage the SME actually to redeploy or train their staff to capture the new market, the new technology, basically. So basically, this is actually the list is more than here. I'm just take some of the important company and we'll see what is the policies country policy respond to the organizations. Just I mentioned just now previous in the next previous slide, SME should monitor of these country policies, so that you can take opportunity to capture the things for your SME organizations. So I'm sorry that some of you are not agree with this Indonesians, and I also don't agree with the policy response is being litigated in this. But however, I can say that I quote this. I take this this response is from the OECDs, and I've taken this in the 3 weeks before, basically. So so moving forwards into second quarters of the countries. So we just passed up our first quarter, and we're moving up to the second quarter, basically. So economy fallouts are definitely in the first quarter, the first 3 months, the economy is very bad. And we also foresee that the second quarter is continued to be worse because of the people movement in the restriction, basically. So more and more people is being in the condition of lockdown, and is still in the recession, basically. Further stress in the financial market, restore as much economy as possible, and likely further cuts in the interest rate, basically, is going to happen. So with that, I finish my presentations. I left it if any question and answer by now, basically. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khoong. So I would like to invite questions, and actually I don't have to invite because there are some questions already listed in the chat room. So I will read aloud the questions for you. I will read the first 2 questions first, Dr. Khoong, and I hope that you'll be able to answer the first 2 first, and then we will consider the remaining time, before we move on to the next questions. So the first question is from Andrian Pangestu. Many countries have started opening their lockdowns and economy for the sake of SME sustainability. What is your opinion about it? Do you agree? That is the first question. And the second question is, this crisis become more complex, uncertain, and globally happened. It also makes every country to have strategy to lead. Based on your opinion, what is the best stimulus that government can provide for SMEs? Is lowering the interest rate for SME credit is effective enough? And here, Brigida Janice Wiratman added that what she thinks about the background of the question is due to the fact that there is a big risk for the lender if SMEs can't repay its liabilities. So these are the 2 questions. Do you want to answer the first one first, Dr. Khoong?
Okay, thank you for the question. I try to answer on some of the question because I cannot see, it's too small. Okay. Many countries have started opening their lockdown for this.
Okay, the first question is from Andrian Pangestu, and I will retype it for you. Okay, that appears now as the last sentence or the last line in the group chat. So many countries have started reopening their lockdowns and economy for the sake of SME sustainability. What is your opinion about it? Do you agree? So that's the first question.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with what you mentioned. Dewi, right? Dewi, okay. So giving a no choice that we have to do a lockdown initially, and but too long lockdowns, no business, economic shutdowns, and for my opinions is but the most concerned thing is by now for me is the health issues. If you're able to address the health issues in a correct manner, follow the standard operation procedures, we have no doubt that we have to open up the economics for the SME to be continued sustainability. But the question is for me nowadays is if how you want to address the health issues that applicable where we can't see where is the sources of the virus basically. But I just want to share one of my interview sections with my colleague, maybe with the SME basically. So he told me that yeah, in Malaysia situation definitely, as in Malaysia we allow being to be open up some of the SME industry, and it shows that about 50% already in employment, back to the employment. But however, the bosses might be reluctant to continue the business. It's because that there are more concerns of health issues in terms of the economic. But however, I mean, from the country government point of view, they have to succeed because without SME, they can't do it anyway, basically. So, yeah, I agree with you definitely. Thank you. Okay. The second question is this one.
Yes, so I already copy pasted the second question. And the second question is about the credit given to SME. So basically the question is asking whether you agree if the best stimulus of the government is to lower down the interest rate for SME's credit. Is it effective?
Yeah, I agree with you that you're talking about, I mean, in Malaysia, we have the interest rate and we call it the OPR overnight policy rate, basically. And the government has been doing it 2-3 times, lowers the interest rate to help out the SME to get it more easy to financing, basically. But however, I don't see it in my country, especially. There's much lower in these positions. If from economic point of view, if you try lower too much lower, there will be create a redundancy at the end, and we won't have the economic ever. Basically, there might be some limitation over here. Basically, thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Khoong, and I think we have time for 2 more questions. And actually, the last questions are already posted by Sonia Christine. So now I'm posting it to you. So there are 2 questions from Sonia. The first one is, what if we already plan a new business, but then the COVID-19 crisis happened? So how to proceed or manage? So the first question is about how to manage the business while actually the original business plan cannot be executed due to this COVID. That's the first question. Do you want to answer it first?
Let me answer this first before I forget, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that maybe before the crisis, early of the year or end of last year, maybe some of you have a business plan that a new business that you want to venture definitely, and might be this is my opinion basically. You want to get some help from you get some opportunity help and from the government's policy, might be some in terms of the grant. I believe that some of the in Malaysia definitely there might be hope in your country basically, and that can help you to encourage you to continue the business. But definitely I can see most of the information that I see in the website is more to if you're venturing the business, try to shift to a daily working conditions so that they are willing to help you in the future, basically now in the future, basically. Okay.
Okay, so I hope that answer is clear for Sonia. As the second question, Dr. Khoong, is about the business standard. What I suppose is the operational standard of the business. So what Sonia wants to know that after this COVID-19 crisis, based on your opinion, how will small to medium enterprises sustain its businesses?
This is very a good question, definitely. Because this is
The last one is always difficult.
always difficult. I mean, I only can, for my opinion, is there's so many uncertainty in this point of time, and we can't predict what is going to happen in the very short term, even next week or next month. We can't basically. But whatever we do now is try to follow that whatever the government policies that we have, and we try to suit it in what at least the last resources that they might be help us in by now or maybe in the future, basically. So I'm sorry, I think I can't have any real standards by now, basically. Maybe in the future after my research, basically. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay, so thank you very much. So as a wrap up of this event, I would like to summarize what have been discussed so far. So far we have discussed about how the COVID-19 crisis impact the systematic risks of different countries. And here Dr. Khoong already shared his thoughts about how the layout of the businesses across countries will change, and from different countries already, even now, pave the ways to enter the new era of businesses, which is the post-COVID-19 era.
Yeah.
So I would like to say thank you to Dr. Khoong for allocating time and effort to conduct this online seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And I would like to thank all of the participants for participating in this online seminar. And also I would like to thank this BINUS Nusantara team for facilitating and accommodating this online seminar. Thank you very much all. So, bye-bye.